Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tea and Magic. Every single Friday here in the Magic Grove, I get to bring on an amazing special guest of my choice, usually somebody that I know who is awesome, to talk about magic. This week is incredibly special because today is May 1st and it is Beltane. The Celts had two big holidays. I mean, they celebrated a lot of holidays, but they basically had two major holidays, and one of them was Beltane, celebrating the summer that's coming in, the warmth. There's bonfires. There's so many magical things we're going to talk about. But first, I want to introduce my guest, Deidra Catero. She is what she loves to call a spiritual tour guide for magic, which I love. She's a teacher, she's a high priestess, and she's the co-host of an incredible podcast that you all need to be listening to called Brewing Witches. Welcome, Deidra. Oh, wait, I forgot to mention also one of my best friends because, how did I forget that? You're welcome. I'm so excited to have you here for Beltane.
You got to cheer. You got to do the ziggities, What
are you doing to celebrate? What are you doing to celebrate Beltane? Yeah. Besides being here.
Yeah. Being here is my first and primary way to celebrate Beltane, but I may or may not have at noon o'clock, I like to o'clock like that, at noon o'clock my time, have drank a little coffee where I usually don't, so I was like, ready to go, and I may or may not have danced around my apartment by myself singing like Goddess chants.
That's the best way to start a morning, every morning.
It's like, yes.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Well, I need to know what you're drinking because this is Tea and Magic. So we need to know what you're drinking and we need to see the mug, of course. And you've got like a special tea setup that you need to talk about over there.
Going on because for those of you that don't know, I'm also a production designer and I go a little overboard in some cases because we have to. I mean, look, this is my teapot gifted by one of my dearest friends in Swiss, Liz. This is a teacup from a production I worked on. This is the actual tea I'm drinking, which I'll show you in a moment. But it's a blend. If you could see this, it's kind of beautiful. It's rosebuds, lavender, butterfly pea flower tea, and fresh mint. Then you add some honey because it's beautiful. But what you don't see, and my tea kind of looks black from just like if I were to hold it this way, which isn't fun. But if I do this correctly and I don't blind you, what I can show you is how beautiful this tea really is. It's this beautiful purple color. And if you take some lemon, the acid from the lemon and the butterfly pea flowers turn it pink. Do you see that? So I'm aptly calling this tea Beltane tea.
I tried so hard, as you guys know, like I told her ahead of time, if I say anything, Zoom is going to transfer it over to me. So I was like cheering and laughing in silence because I was like, that is so awesome. But I can't say anything because I need that to be captured on camera. That's awesome. You know what? Leave it to like a talented artistic production designer / amazing artist to bring glowing tea to set. That's a first. That's a first. I do want to take a minute to show, I'm always drinking like some basic chamomile because, I'm like prepping for the shows. I was like, let me throw my tea together. But I have a very special mug that I want to show off because it was my birthday last week. Or was it last week? No, 2 weeks ago. But one amazing human being, Trevor Undergrove, that I know always draws these cool pictures of me. And he gifted me on my birthday with this picture of me. It is, look at it. I'm a witch, and there's my cat, and there's my lucky Care Bear. So I put it on a mug. I was like, how could I not have this on a mug? Isn't that the coolest thing? Like, he knows me. People know me. So thank you, Trevor. I appreciate it. This mug is going to be famous. Yes.
Also trying really hard not to cheer and squeal.
I know. I know. I had to say that in advance. I'm like, we gotta be conscious of the camera, but really Deidra and I have been friends and we have so much energy together that we're constantly just gonna be like squealing the whole time, right?
Yeah, we kind of like squeak and laugh at appropriate and inappropriate moments because we're just like soul Swiss,
And I met Deidra a few years ago. So just a little bit of a backstory because this pertains to some of the conversations we're going to be having. I have been working on a book series that was a film, that was a television series, that's now a book series called Era Song, and it's about Ireland during the famine and Celtic magic. And I'm hoping to finish that first book sometime this year. But I had brought Deidra, as well as Elizabeth, who was on last week's show talking about fairies, on to be magical consultants. So Deidra was there telling me, you know, she has a plethora of knowledge about ancient magic, about traditional magic, about a lot of rituals. And so she helped me kind of go through a lot of those scenes and make them perfect. But what that did was we became best friends, and we ended up going to Ireland together 2 years ago on Beltane. That is how we met in person. So like, how was that for you? Just tell me about your Ireland experience, because that was the first time you went to Ireland, right?
That was technically the first time I went to Ireland. I went to Italy, like 6 months prior. And that was my first time leaving the country. And I'm going to not include Canada in that because we're kind of like connected, but same continent, you know? So, but when I went to Italy, I actually had a layover in Dublin, and I missed my flight on my way home from Rome to Dublin, from Dublin to New York. So I got stuck in Dublin for a day, and this wonderful family helped me out. I cried. I loved them. But I knew it then that there was something about Ireland that was calling me and that I'd be back. And when Chris and I met virtually, we were doing Skype meetings. A mutual friend of ours introduced ourselves. We were originally talking about art, speaking of production design, and then she brought up my background in spirituality. And she told me that. I was like, what? And that ended up starting my career off as also a historical magic consultant, which is something I also do for film. So we met for the first time in Ireland, and that was unreal. We had so many magical adventures. We had a Beltane ritual, like a full moon ceremony at Douth. We went to Rathcrogan, to the Cave of Cats, where we definitely had the Morrigan experiences and stole my charm, of which I was going to wear today. I want to wear this heart. And gave it back promptly thereafter, where we realized we were stronger together. And we had a beautiful Beltane at the Bantry House, which was a location that we were looking at for Idri Song. It was so much magic that happened. We did the Ring of Kerry at night by moonlight, which we were told later was one of the most dangerous things we could have done. Well, not sure how, but we survived. Probably by the luck of the Fae, because at the end of a time where we may or may not have almost died, there was a smiley face on a tree stump that was like, gotcha. We got a flat tire in the middle of nowhere. We were the lost sheep of Ireland, and were magically saved by a guy that happened to have a mechanic shop right nearby in the middle of the night. Expected nothing less. It was one of the most amazing, magical, and beautiful experiences of my life. And it was certainly life-changing for so many reasons, not only personally, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, but also in my career, in my growth. And Christine and last week's guest, Elizabeth, and another few friends of ours became so close. We have this little group that we love and we support each other, and #magic.
Oh my gosh. You know what I love? I love that you said we are stronger together, because as we got to know each other and as we work together, Deidra's right. We have a little group that texts like every single day, that there are people that came together working on my show, which I'm so grateful for. And I love that concept of we are stronger together. So not only are we as a human, I just feel like that's so relevant to what's happening right now as a human race. We are stronger together. But what I love about these stories, we just gave you like little glimpses of what we went through. As Deidra was saying, so much magic happened. I mean, our car broke down in the middle of nowhere. It was nighttime. No one was around. And the random guy that we found happened to own a mechanic shop. This is what happens when you and a magical friend of yours get together. And you're in a magical land with tons of fairies, right?
It was, even our soap was magical. Remember the first Airbnb we went to, our soap said fairy on it.
It was so awesome. I love it. So let's kick this off with like a really big question. I think you know what's coming, but we love to have this conversation. And obviously we're here in the Magic Grove. I want to know, from your perspective, what is magic? I'm just going to leave it at that.
Loaded question, Chris, loaded.
I like to just, like, let's have some fun. Okay, wait, serious question. No, it's not really that serious, but.
You like this? Dip your toe in. Whoosh. Magic is, by definition, manifestation. So it is creation. It is that moment where things are made. Magic is energy and energy is thought. So we make things even just by the energy of thinking. There's this great quote by Raven Grimassi, and I hope I say it correctly because it's actually on my phone, which is what I'm recording on. And it's in his book, Witchcraft and Mystery Tradition. And it says, witchcraft, the mythos of witchcraft is to reconcile what the conscious mind will not accept with what the subconscious mind cannot ignore. The most beautiful part about magic is some things we will never understand. They're the mysteries. Some things we actually can describe a lot with science, especially since science back in the day. And now we could bring that forth. But the thing that's really beautiful about magic is that transition point. That transition point is what true magic is, that 0 point. Because in math, you could always add another 0 to make something smaller. It's infinitesimally small. It's 0.01, 0.001, 0.0001. But that infinitesimally small moment that our human minds can never conceive, where darkness becomes light, where nothingness becomes life, where life becomes death. Those transitions are true magic. It's where things are made or unmade. And that is that moment we'll never understand. But the rest we could try.
I love that magic has so much mystery surrounding it. But what I love that you said, because I'm in the middle of doing my moon magic course, and I'm encouraging people saying, look, the magic is something you have to believe in. Magic is, as I always say, your personal power plus intention. And if you don't believe that you have that power, that you have the power, like you said, to manifest what you want in this life, then magic isn't real for you. Believing in your own power is believing in magic. And I think a lot of times, because this is a conversation that we have all the time, is that people think magic is what you see when, you're watching a show about witches and they're lighting candles from the other side of the room, or a lot of that old Celtic culture, we get it from there. And we start to think that magic is tied to a specific culture and it's tied to a specific set of beliefs, or there's certain rules or rituals that you have to perform in order to practice magic. But at the end of the day, what it really is a belief in your power to manifest, right?
Yes. Like we said before, I say probably way too much. Magic is energy and energy is thought. And you should never doubt your magic. That's truly what makes something happen or doesn't. It's a wavelength. It's a frequency. It's literally our brains are radio transmitters. Like the science behind it is real. There's positive affirmations. There's like attracts like. There's so many things. But if you doubt your magic, then you're doubting yourself. If you doubt yourself, then you're doubting your magic. And it won't work. But if you have an utter belief in the universe with perfect love and perfect trust that it's listening, it's on our side, it doesn't want things to go wrong. It may sometimes uproot you and put you where it knows you need to be. And change is hard, change is cumbersome, but it's always good to have. So go with it. The universe is going to come up with a blueprint that you'll never imagine. You're going to be like, hey, I want this with my life. I want this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And the universe is like, really? That's cool, because I'm going to give you something that you would have never thought of. Like, being a historical magic consultant, something I never would have thought of in my life. But the universe had a better blueprint than I could have ever come up with. And if you follow those tingles, it'll lead you there.
Yes, I know you, so I can add here that the most important thing is that you focused on your power and your magic. You focused on knowing, you believed that you had that magic, and you knew that you were here to bring magic back to the world in some way. So when we are trying to figure out our life path and our soul calling, the how we do it is not really up to us. That's something the universe is going to bring. And if we try to control the how, we're not going to get something as good as we could, because we're always going to get something more amazing than we expected. But the basis of that, the foundation, was your belief that you knew you were here for that reason, and you believed you were here, and the universe just brought you, like Deidra is a historical magic consultant for films and television now. That was something that she started with me, and she was like, wait a minute, I can do this. And then all of a sudden she started getting booked on tons of shows. So talk a little bit about what was it like to be, what is a magic historical consultant? I'm going to say it wrong. What is that? And, you know, what is your experience? Like, what do you bring to the table? Because a lot of times we see in television and film that things are not really correct. And you are there to say, no, look, like, this is how magic works. Because that's part of the truth that you are trying to bring forward in the world, is like, this is really how it works. Just give us like an example of something that you worked on, because this is so fascinating.
Okay, so historical magic consultant is a phrase coined by my friend Anna. She's a linguistic person. So she was like, because I don't want to say that I am going to give you the history of magic, although I can. What I'm going to say is I'm going to give you magic that is accurate. It's historical. So, and also there's progressive magic and how that works forward and how that is correct or authentic. And not to say that other things aren't, but I want to portray it properly because I personally want to break the stigma. I mean, granted, we have these beautiful things in film and television where we have these over-dramatized moments because you can't, like you said, it's not always something you see, it's something you feel, and that's hard to portray on film if it's not visual. It's a visual medium. It's an audio medium. So sometimes we have to give dramatic license as well. We give leeway to that. But when I'm on a set and they ask me for advice, I will talk to them about, usually they'll have something written in the script that I'm like, oh, that's kind of like this, or you're trying to get at this kind of feeling, and I'll suggest something, and oftentimes it is in that relation. But then we will talk about what we're kind of giving allowances for dramatic license, because it is still a show, and it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to draw you in and bring something to you. It's supposed to inspire you. And we could do that, but we could try to do it within the basis of what magic has given us. So oftentimes people will say, like, I want lasers to be shooting out of their eyes, or like, I want their hands to have these glowing things, or maybe not this, or I want things to float. But there's a way to do that with, like, kind of especially old time cinematography, where you kind of leave that to the imagination and you see the aftermath of it. You see the trauma or the turmoil that the character is going through. Or I worked on a show where I was actually in the art department for it, and they found out that I was a witch and we're doing tarot, and they needed my help just figuring out, like, how to, like, actually lay it out. And they may or may not have come up with their own thing afterwards, but just the fact that I had a meeting with the director, the creator of the show, the props master, the actresses, to give them the proper format. And they used some of my props or some of my tools that I lent to them as props. And that's the fun thing about it, because we could make it grow, but hopefully give some authenticity so it's understood and there's no stigma and there's no fear about what being a witch is, or witchcraft, or universal magic, whatever you want to call it, because there's so many traditions that lie under that branch.
And you know, that you're going to see that a lot in Era Song. So that's something that Deidra really helped me with, and Liz helped me with, was that magic is so mysterious. Sometimes you don't really have to show it. In fact, we can't see magic a lot of the times. That's such a great point. Is it something that we feel, and it's something that we know, and we can see the results of using it, but we can't always see ourselves or anyone else using it. So a lot of times it is hard to portray that in film and television because it's an energy. How do you show energy? So one of the things I want to talk about, though, is that for us, magic is very universal. We have this conversation all the time. Again, we just said that it's not always tied to it's not really tied to a certain religion or a certain area of the world. Magic is happening everywhere. But we have this conversation about universal magic and how to break it down so that people understand these concepts. So could you talk a little bit about that? Like, if you were to teach somebody, or if you were to share, like, what is universal magic? What do I mean by that? I would love for you to share that.
Universal magic, I like to explain, is that there is no bias in time or location for magic. So it's not a specific pantheon. There's archetypes that traverse all continents, traverse all time periods, traverse all types of religions and spiritualities. So when you take the understanding of those archetypes, like, for instance, people may call the universal source Allah. or God or the goddess or a specific name for the goddess. So there's people come to me and they're like, oh, you're a witch, you believe in a million different gods and goddesses. Like, not necessarily. I believe in their facets. I like to explain it as a universal source, like a diamond. And there's different facets to that diamond. And I don't speak French. So if someone were to come to me trying to tell me a message in French, I'm not going to understand it. I'm not going to receive it that way. But this particular facet, this particular language, these words, this relays the message to me in the way I need to receive it. That goddess, that facet is how I could receive it in a safe in my heart and soul way, even if it's the same message, it's that same diamond, no matter where it's coming from. And I feel like magic universally is that no matter what you talk about, there's the as above, so below. Astral work, underworld work, Terran work, no matter what realm you're in. Even talking about the fairies, like last week, that we're like an apartment complex. We all have neighbors above us and below us and to the side, and we're all kind of intertwining, and our side neighbors have neighbors above them and below them too. We all live in the same sphere, because time and space are just a sphere, right? Nothing is really linear. We all experiencing everything at the same time. It's how we perceive it and how we receive the message. It's not what I want to say to you so much as how I say it to you for you to be able to receive it. And that's how I like to teach universal, or like how I teach magic, so that people understand it universally, because they will have their own pantheons. They will have their own traditions. They will have their own basis from their history, from their personal culture, from their personal experiences that they will click with, that they'll resonate with. And it's not to say that it's wrong. If religion is like an abstract painting and there are 5 people in the world allowed to see it, and then they have to tell all of us they're all looking at the same painting, but based on their own personal backgrounds, they're going to describe it differently. They're going to have different interpretations. That doesn't mean it's wrong. And if it gives you some sort of moral guidelines, some sort of comfort, some sort of thing to look forward to, who am I to say it's wrong? It's not. It's feeding your soul. It's allowing you to grow and allowing you to release. It's fulfilling the earth, air, fire, water, spirit, void, the 6 elements of the pentagram. It's fulfilling every aspect, every realm of yourself in order for you to progress. That's magic. That's, I think, universal magic.
And you know how you can just see through your explanation and feel this uplifting of like, we are one, right? You know, Liz talked about the one, we are one consciousness, we are one people, we're all humans on this earth. And what I love about referring to magic in a universal sense is sometimes people get really caught on the labels, and they also get caught on the historical stories that we're told about magic. Again, we talk about the stigma and removing the stigma, because many of us were told magic was evil. In reality, we are being told it is evil and it is wrong to have our own power and to believe that we have power to change our own lives. And that's what we are removing here by teaching magic and by talking about it at a universal level. What I love that you said, if you sit down in that context and think about all of the religions of the world, we are all talking about the same thing, and how much strife and turmoil has happened over labels, over someone saying, no, my story is right, your story is wrong. When in reality, we're all talking about the same thing, right?
Exactly. We're all talking about the same thing. And that's, there are so many situations that I've been that could have gone really bad if I was just like, hey, I'm Deidra, I'm a witch. Nice to meet you. And there are situations that have gone bad without me even being that direct, because they think it's evil. They think there's something bad to it, but there's not. We're all, and when you speak to it, I try to be careful with my words. I try to be careful about my language, and I'm not saying I try to make everyone happy, but I try to be neutral, because that's how a message gets across to the most people. And that's how we could all relate to each other and realize we are all one. We're all part of the same energy. We all have the filaments within our grasp to weave our own worlds, to weave our own realities, whatever that may be, however we may perceive it. But we're all made up of the same, like Liz, stardust. We're all made up of the same atoms. Everything in the universe is made up of the same things. And if you break it down, we're just rebuilding them in different ways. And there's nothing wrong with having the same atoms.
I want that to be like a dating app. Like, hey guy, hey boy, you got the same atoms. You want to go? But really, that's what it comes down to. Now, you have a very specific background. You are a high priestess. You have spent the majority of your life. I mean, you were so young when you started practicing magic, and you are still so young, and you made it to like I want to call it like the ultimate level in your grove. But you have also been taught by a lot of teachers that were very traditional and that perhaps did feel that things were a certain way. And, you know, I absolutely love the people that you work with. So this is in no disrespect whatsoever. But we had this conversation about this before. What was it like transitioning from growing up, having like 15 years of experience working with like very, very traditional magic, to opening that up to realizing that this was more universal? I mean, did you have any sort of falling out with any particular person? You don't have to mention any names, or how did that feel to sort of gain that independence from like, okay, I know I learned a certain way, but you know, I could sort of break out of that. And the reason I'm saying this is because I know we have a lot of people watching this show who were raised with very strict beliefs, or parents with very strict beliefs, or teachers with very strict beliefs, that are wondering like, how do I maintain the foundation of those, but kind of break off and make this more open and independent so that I can feel like part of the rest of the world?
That is a long question.
It's a long question. I'm going to back up and say, was there a time, or what was your transition like, going from learning and practicing very traditional witchcraft from teachers that did very specific things, to opening that up to something that felt more universal, and also that transition in your teaching where you were taught very specific ways, but you now teach things and speak and create dialogue in a more universal, global way, if that makes sense?
Yeah, totally does. So I actually should preface with, before I was trained, I was solitary. And I had my own way of magic before I had the words for it. Most people that started off in magic didn't have the words for it yet. And it's at like a certain age, like around cliche 13, where like, oh, I'm a witch, and that's what that word means. I get it now. So I had my own path. I had my own tradition. I had my own way of doing things. And I like to joke and say that the forest taught me, because I lived in the woods. And I like to say that the fairies taught me, or the forest taught me. I mean, my mom and dad I was raised Roman Catholic. My dad was very outdoorsy, so I definitely learned to respect nature and be out there the whole time. My mom is spiritual in a slightly different sense, but like it coincides and we work well together. And so I went from there to finding my high priestess, who is a wonderful woman. And she taught me so much, and that community opened up my eyes in a lot of ways, because it gave me words, it gave me definitions to what I already felt, and I just didn't know why I felt them or what they were. And from there, I learned the coven that we were in or that they are in. I'm no longer, but they are my family. They were basis in Alexandria Gardnerian, which is more of a staunch tradition, but traditional and beautiful. And then we kind of realized we're more progressive. And that's why I learned the difference between being eclectic and progressive. So eclectic is taking pieces and bringing them together because they feel right for you, which is a beautiful concept. Being progressive is taking those pieces that feel right and kind of delving in a little bit more to understand your roots. Because your tree is only going to be as strong as your roots are. You want to spread so wide, especially when you're eclectic, and we should all like experience different things. But your branches are going to only reach as far to the astral as strong as your roots are. That's how trees work. Your roots are fed and nourished by the ancestors, and your tree trunk grows stronger in your present time, and your astral branches reach out to the stars. But that's only going to work. You're only going to be able to receive as much from both ends. So I learned my traditions there. I learned where I come from, or where the work we do comes from. And I was fortunate, and I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to work with a lot of different elders in our community. And then from there, I kind of ended up having my own group. But they were progressive. So I didn't go from being staunch to not. I went from understanding what progressive was in that community to what I wanted to and how I wanted to myself. In the tradition that I follow, the coven that I was in was a teaching coven. So I got my first, second, and third degrees, and I had my own students. I had my own grove, and that was my magic family too. And we were just separate. It's not that, and we did magic together. Sometimes we came together for holidays like Beltane or Samhain or Yule, major holidays. But I had my own group. So it was more of like a hiving off, which is when you go through our tradition, you kind of receive gifts of the elements. It's like you receive earth, then fire, air, water, and then spirit is your third degree. And then when you get void, it's when you hive off. And that's kind of how that worked out. And I learned a lot on my own, and I have my grove, but we don't work together as much anymore, but they're still my magic family, and they are still my heart and soul in so many ways. But that doesn't mean that we have to be together all the time, because in that moment I was going through my personal transition and learning my time and learning through void, because people look at void as darkness or black, but it's not. It's blackness. Void is infinite possibilities and what could be born from it. It's the blackness of the cosmos and the stars coming from it. It's the blackness of the womb and life coming from it. It's the blackness of the cauldron and what you could nourish your family with. And through that blackness is where I found another part of my light. It's another stage. And that's where I learned how to work with more universal magic, in having had taught my students in the traditional way through my first and second degree, then kind of trying to work with my own tradition from the past, like when I was alone, and then realizing that it's all of them coming together. And now that's what I'm doing. I'm taking my personal history, my personal thoughts and beliefs, and meshing them with, now I know the definitions. Now I know the why in a lot of ways. And that is what has fulfilled my tree, because now I have the roots of the foundations, and then I have the tree trunk and the strength of what I have come up with on my own. And that is how I could spread my branches and reach the astral, because now we can nourish each other, because magic is alive. Being pagan is a nature-based religion, and if nature evolves, so must we. And it shouldn't ever stay the same. Your tree has to grow, otherwise you get literally root rot. No one wants that.
I think that needs to be a t-shirt. No one wants root rot, but like a magic t-shirt. Oh, I absolutely love that, because I do think that there are a lot of people in different stages, you know, watching these videos. They're just jumping into magic. They are just discovering like who they are and what they want to do, or they've been practicing magic for a really long time and it's feeling a little bit stale. And they are now being asked to evolve into a different phase. So we kind of have, you know, people from all walks. But I know for you and for me, part of this process as well, because I think we talked about this in one of the other episodes, was that you will always have guides. You are never alone. You will always have guides. So of course you had your elders and your teachers and your human guides, but you also had one of the goddesses, or several goddesses, but you had a matron goddess that you worked with that came to you at a very specific time to lead you on this journey. And I would love for you to share a little bit of that experience of working with Diana and how she had helped shift your life and how she helped walk you through some of these phases of your life. Because I know we talked about this last week. It was like, some point you might be called to work with a very specific energy, and it could be a wonderful experience.
Gods and goddesses.
Gods and goddesses, yes.
Duality is important. You always need that balance. That yin yang of spirit and void is crucial at all times, because you're never one or the other. You have bits of everything and all 6 elements. So the deities, I actually started off with Hera. So my Hera is my preface. Through the gods and gods tradition of Triformices, you have a maiden mother crone and page father sage. So it's the different stages in your life and what you're going through and what you need. Not necessarily like, I'm a mother now, I'm going to get my mother goddess. It's what do you need in that moment. So Hera was my mother goddess, and I was going through a hard time when I was searching. And I started off looking through I'm Italian, so I started off looking through the Roman Greco pantheons, and that's how I read something. I was like, Hera. I'm like, that clicks. that resonates. That feels right. And she ended up leading me through a growth that I needed, and like that kind of motherly kindness in the moment of like, I was in college having a time, and she ended up eventually leading me to Diana, who is my maiden goddess. Mind you, at this time I had the green man, who was my father God, also nurturing, care, and guiding. But Diana, she like shot her arrow right at me, and we were like, okay, we're gonna do this. Cool, got it. We're doing this together. She just showed up everywhere. She showed up everywhere, and when I at one point thought magic was too much and tried to stop in my life, she, I believe, was the one that was like, you're a witch, do it. And I was like, all right, here we go. I don't even have like specific moments to share, because it's like everything. I don't have moments, and I don't think of my life as a witch, like, oh, I do these practices, I have these things, I live it. It's my everyday existence. It's my all the time. It's a way of being more than anything else. I have an apple a day with her. She's the one that reminded me to be strong no matter what. She reminded me to be compassionate no matter what. She is a triformist in and of herself. She's a maiden mother crone. So she reminded me that I have all those parts in me, that I will be making it through no matter what. And she also reminded me to play. When I was too tough, when I had those moments of like, crone, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna make this through. She was like, play. Let me just like make you trip for a hot second. Like literally trip like into a lake. Like oh. And when I went to Italy with a dear friend of mine that's like a brother, his name is Tony. He took me to Italy and changed my life. I went to the Temple of Diana and I felt it. I went to Lake Nemi, which is considered it's considered the mirror, Diana's mirror, because it's an empty crater. And I swam in it and I felt like everything in my life that I had felt with magic, even though I knew it was true because I have no doubt in my magic and I'd been doing this. I was already a 3rd degree at this time. Somehow in that moment, I had never felt more correct. I was swimming in the middle of the lake during the eclipse here, but I was there, sky-clad in the lake, and it felt like the bottom of the lake bed was the eye of the goddess, and I was just sitting right in the center of the people floating in that eyeball liquid, and she just happened to open her eye there. And that's what it felt like. And everything was correct. Everything was like, nope, this is my truth. This is how I feel. And I am on the right path. And my arrow is going direct. It is true. I have shot it true, and I will continue to in the best way I can. And I think that those moments, and I have much smaller moments that I could describe, but that was hugely profound for me, especially because I already had my direction and I already knew what I felt and believed. But there are certain moments that you just have profound truth within yourself, and you'll feel it. You'll feel that wriggle of affirmation of like the snake of your ancestors resting on your spine. You'll have that welling up in your eyes when, even if like it's something you've known before, but it just clicks in that moment and you have that registration of recognition and you're like, yes, I acknowledge this. Those are the moments where, even if it's a small thing, that you know that magic is real because you feel it in every realm of yourself.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Those are the moments when you know magic is real. Like, I'm feeling that right now. I'm like, oh God, it's going to start to get teary here. Deidra and I are so emotional, so we might cry on this episode. But that was so beautiful. That was so gorgeous. It's just being tied to all of the energies that are here to help, being tied to the earth, knowing that you are here, knowing that you are important, and that you are powerful, and that magic is real. And those are some of the most beautiful moments of our life. When we first met, you shared with me a very cool exercise that I would love for you to, it could be like the abridged version, but we were talking about the elements because Song is very much about elemental magic, about the old Celtic magic, about the storms. And you shared with me this beautiful exercise of how to use the elements to relate to other people. So for example, and you remember that you were talking about, whoa, what if somebody is really angry and they're coming at you? I don't want to spoil it, but could you walk us through a scenario using the elements, something similar to that, where say, you're out there in the world and you're experiencing this pandemic, or you're running into people that are feeling very chaotic because that is relevant to the energy that's happening right now. How could you possibly tap into the elements to sort of neutralize that and continue to keep yourself uplifted without having to create a protection bubble? Because, you're out here to interact with people, and sometimes that's not possible.
Oddly enough, conveniently, and probably magically serendipitously, this fell off the top of my bookcase right before we started. And I was like, what fell? And that's what I was picking up when we first started recording. So my understanding the elements lesson, I guess. This is a pentacle or pentagram. It has 5 points. The elements, though, there are 6. Most people don't know that. There's earth, air, fire, water, spirit, which is the epitome of light, life, and love, and void, which is the epitome of nothingness. I explained before that void is blackness and its infinite possibilities. And the idea of duality isn't necessarily masculine or feminine. It's the idea of the giving light and the receiving void, and what could be made from that. And that's why the OGs back in the day, the most sacred form of magic was the great rite, which is how we create, because creation is magic. And what we forget is we are living things, and everything that's alive has all of the elements in them, all 6. But let's start with just the main 4 that people know. So I like to think of the elements individually first and think about them as just what they are. So earth. Earth is a rock, let's say, just like straight up rock. I'm not going to say plants, because plants are alive, so they have all of us in them. I don't refer to plants as just earth. So rock. If a rock encounters an obstacle, what's it going to do? Chris, this is interactive. You have to answer.
Okay, wait. What's it going to do if the rock, it's going to stop it, or something's going to have to go around it?
Or it's going to bust through, right? Like a landslide.
Yeah.
Cool.
I was just so mesmerized. I was like, yes, teach me, oh goddess.
Okay, fire. Similarly, what's fire going to do if it hits an obstacle?
It's going to burn through it, or it's going to go around it.
Copy. That's the film person in me. Air. What's it going to do if it hits an obstacle? So like it hits a mountaintop, it's going to like go crazy. It's going to hit everything, bounce back and forth, go everywhere, right? Water. If it hits an obstacle in a stream, if a stream's going, a river's going, there's a rock in the middle of it, it's going to most likely go around it or bust through if it has to, the opposite of like the rock and fire. So now thinking of those as people. If an earth person, if a rock has a personality, and what is a rock person going to be like, an earth person? If it, on average, it'll probably like be very observant. It'll sit there. It's going to witness what's around it. It's going to feel a lot. If a rock person comes face to face with an obstacle, what's it going to do? Probably nothing at first. It's probably going to be like absorbing the situation, just sit there, let it get hit. It's going to be hard. And then, like a landslide, it'll bust through if it needs to. Fire. If it is chilling there, it's going to burn, it's going to grow, it's going to grow, it's going to try to eat and consume everything it can. Probably a very highly metabolic, good metabolism person. Probably very good at that, active, like very going. Once it hits an obstacle, what's it going to do? Run through. Air, going on a mountain, it's going forward, like really just a going kind of person in like a nice kind of direct way. And then once it hits something, I might like throw them off course. It's going to hit a mountain and be like, what? You know, it's going to hit back and go like that. Water, if it hits an obstacle, if it hits a rock, it's going to probably like go around it to the best of its ability and then go right back on course. Or if it can't get through, it's going to finally like bust through it. Now let's think of those interacting. So let's say a water person and a fire person. What's going to happen?
Yeah. Well, oh, I know. Well, I was going to say, in addition to this, you know, these are emotions. So it could, you know, we could be talking about someone's astrological sign, but we could be talking about someone's emotions. So we're talking about water and fire. It's like, you know, someone that's deeply emotional at that moment meets somebody that's like passionate and burning in that moment. Like, how are those two interacting with one another, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because water is one of those things that's going to be level. It's going to be a level-headed person. It's going to like be a self-leveling person for the most part, but they're also going to be self-reflective because water is reflected from above, but it's also reflected from below. So not only are they going to be like witnessing things in like a very like internal way, like they see it a lot, they're also going to think that on themselves a lot. And fire, again, is going to be like pushing forward a lot more than they'll be thinking internally, being reflective or self-leveling. So if you have a water person and a fire person, or just water and fire in general, they make bubbles, right? And you're like, oh, that could be fun. Like that could be really fun, water and fire. Or it could be too much fire and it could evaporate the water, or it could be too much water and it'll just douse out the fire. So if you think about those as emotions or personalities, that could happen with someone when you're having a conversation. Or when you encounter a person that's a fire person, they might just be like trying to tell you what's going on. And like, this is the direct way they know. This is the fire. This is the, I'm going to keep pushing in this direction. Whereas the water's like, but I'm going to like, can't you just go, like, can't you think about it this way too? I'm going to avoid this obstacle. But then after a while, the fire might just drain out the water person, or the water might just be like, blah, here's some facts and emotions about yourself. Like, be self-reflective for a hot second. But that's not great. So the idea is to keep those balances. And like a water and earth person, earth could either like muddy water, or water could help shape earth. Earth could give a purpose, a direction for water. Like there's these beautiful interminglings of emotions that you could have with people if you understand where they're coming from. So when you think about the person you're talking to and you're having a hard time, especially in conversations, one of the best things to do is just think about where they're coming from. It's kind of like put yourself in their shoes. Like, and what I was saying earlier, I'm not going to speak to you. I'm not going to say the same thing over and over again if you're not getting it. I'm going to speak to you in a way that I think you need to hear it, not the way I think I need to say it. If it's a message I want to go across, it's not about me getting it out. It's about the message itself, right? And if I feel like it needs to be heard, then I'm not going to be forceful in how I want to say it. I'm going to be forceful in how you need to hear it, or at least I think you need to hear it. So we're going to kind of be empathetic about that and go around it in a way that we could take the time to absorb each other. Because I feel like, I mean, the universe didn't put us here to be sitting at desks and working all day, like working on strange random things. And our most carnal instincts, we are social creatures. So no matter what we do, even in our basic form back in the day, we still want to interact with each other. So I think that we're here for connection. Because if we're that one diamond and there's little shards of that diamond in all of us, then maybe the more people we meet, the more people we connect to, the more things that we click with, we could recreate our diamond. And we're all one thing, and we all are part of each other. Because that energy, you feel someone with it when they enter a room, whether you know they're there or not. You feel someone on the other side when they enter a room, whether you know they're there or not. Physics says energy can't be created nor destroyed. It's just changed, moved, or used in a different way. How do you use your energy? Do you use it so people could feel it with each other? Do you keep it to yourself? Do you shield like a wall, or do you shield like a filter? That's what magic is too. It's about communicating, because magic is energy and energy is thought, magic is manifestation, but you can't do that without communicating to others, without communicating to the universe, without communicating to yourself. Because magic comes with perfect love and perfect trust, but it has to start with yourself. And that's the only reason you could not doubt your magic, because you have to have healthy doubt, but you could only do it humbly and also powerfully if you're honest. And that's how communicating is. Are you communicating in a way that's, I'm a water sign, am I being too evasive? Am I being too level-headed? I'm a fire sign, am I being too pushy? And that's an earth sign, and I know I need to, it's about me changing my way of speaking so that I could be better for you. Because if you're not thinking about the way I'm thinking, then we're going to just keep missing each other on this. It's how could I change to grow? It's all about self-work. And you could only have that self-work if you communicate with yourself, and then you could communicate with others, and then you could communicate with the universe.
That is so beautiful. And if we look at what's happening right now in the world, the elements are amplified. I mean, if fire, the anger, the chaos is amplified. People feeling water, feeling deep emotions and grief is amplified. There are people that are air, just like, I'm skipping out. I'm in denial that any of this is happening. And so that's the question. I love what you said. How are you using your energy? How are you showing up with the world? And, Facebook is like fire, 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 fire all over the place. Are you showing up and meeting fire with fire and amplifying it? Or is there another approach you can take where you can step back and say, you know what? This fire needs to be contained. I'm going to add a little bit of earth and groundedness, or my fire needs to be contained. I need to ground it. Or maybe I don't need a little air denial right now. Maybe I need a little bit of water to soothe that fire. So there's so many different things we can do here, which is why I love that exercise, because it really does pertain to what's happening in the world right now, right?
Yeah, because we're all isolated in such a way that we're projecting in that much more amplification, like you said. And if we don't self-evaluate, we're going to get caught up in what is the opposite of growth, which is stagnation and being root rotted and root bound. No roots.
There's a lot of root rotting in the earth right now when it comes to humankind. And I do feel that to use your term, I think that we are going through a process right now where everyone is being asked to shift and change and evolve. And we are we're digging up those roots and saying, ooh, wow, like this needs to change. And that's a beautiful process. I say this all the time with moon magic, for those of you that are taking my course, that magic is a transformational process. You are always evolving, always changing. And once you tap into your power, you are going to be transforming all of the time. It never ends. You can't truly just be that rock ever. You're always going to be changing. Even rocks get shifted by water, by air, by fire. So we only have a few minutes and the time just flew by, which is crazy because I could talk to you. We needed like a 2-hour special episode, but we only have a few minutes here. And I would like for you to have the opportunity to share anything that you would like to share. We are going to share your links and everything in the description, so you don't have to promote any of that. But any words of wisdom, anything that you are really feeling right now, any messages that you feel this group or anything watching, or anyone watching needs to hear from your amazing, wise, old soul, Deidra.
I think the biggest thing I want to say is to know your magic, to follow it, and to remember that we have this thing in our society where we only follow our gut instinct if it's negative, but try to follow it if it's positive too. Just like we were talking about, we're all made of the same bits, we're all part of the same space. The universe is one organism and we're all symbiotically living in it. And if we think about it as one organism, don't you think that if we all just did the thing we love, it would probably be where we put our most effort and our most heart and soul into? We put the most of ourselves, the best of ourselves into this thing that we love. That'd probably be the best job we'd have. And instead of doing what we think we need to do in a logical sense, in a society sense, and if we just do the best job for us, it's probably the best job for the universe too. There are so many things that are happening right now in the world because we're all isolated. And there are so many things that we didn't get to do because we never had the time, and now we do. And kind of, that's neat. That's something that's been really beautiful to witness. In amongst all the tragedy, there is this beautiful growth. Amongst all the phoenixing, all the fire, there is this beautiful growth happening. And be yourself. Follow the tingles. The universe has a better blueprint than you'll ever imagine because we're part of it. Foot cells don't try to be heart cells don't try to be brain cells. They're all crucial to our existence as an organism. I'm pretty sure what you actually have to offer, what you want to offer, is going to be crucial too. And I'm sure everyone else is going to love it the same way you do, because if you are what you love, how could you not love that back?
I was over here like, God, I love the humans that I know. I love you so much. You are so wise. I have had many conversations with Deidra about her teaching and sharing, and I think that over the next few months we can look forward to some of her videos on YouTube that aren't there yet, because I mean, we could go all day, we could go all week. She is just this library of information and knowledge that comes from your heart and soul. You are a Cancer, so you're all about heart and soul, which I absolutely love. Oh my gosh. Like I said earlier, you guys, she is on a podcast. She's a co-host of a podcast called Brewing Witches. So if you do want to hear things like this every week, I'm going to add that link in the description for you all to see. She is an incredible artist who does astral art and so many amazing things. So I'm going to link to her Instagram where you can find that as well. And gosh, I think I just need to have you all on again next time for Beltane. Yes.
I love you so much. I love you so much, Chris. Thank you so much. This has been wonderful, and I miss you so much. Can we tangibly meet sometime soon when the world's okay?
It is so hard when you love your friends and you're like, can't visit one another. Like, I just want to give you a big fat hug. No, I seriously, I'm feeling that. One last thing is, you guys, if you are watching this later, we are at the Magic Grove. You can visit us at themagickgrove.com. We're here every single week live on Tea and Magic. If you missed the episode, it's going to be live on the Facebook feed. It's also going to be on YouTube, so you can find it there. And is there anything that you just want to end this with like any sort of love? I know I just said, I told you to do like one last thing, but I'm like, you need to share more wisdom. But like, follow your tingles, right? I love that. I think you need to
follow the tingles. Never forget to play. Because what else are we here doing? What else are we here doing? Connect in the best way you can. Be your best self. Because you never know when you're not going to get to be. So always do it. And these are the moments where you're going to realize how much you miss someone, how much you miss the people you love, how much you miss the connection. These are the moments where we're going to self-reflect and remember what we are and what we're not. And remember, what you are is what you want to be. Because magic is energy and energy is thought. So put that out there. Follow the tingles. Chris, I love you beyond reasonable comprehension. That I have to add that. this woman is amazing too. Follow all of her things. She's changed my life. She's one of my dearest friends in the world, and she has so much to share with the world, including people, because she connects. And we're all connected now.
I love you. Okay, everyone, you heard it here. Play more. And today is the perfect day because it's Beltane, and the Celts were partying like maniacs with bonfires, with things we maybe won't mention on the show. It is about those sacred rites, wink, wink. Go out and have a blast today. Follow your passions. Feel that bonfire of energy in your heart, in your soul. Definitely go out to play. And Beltane blessings to everyone. Thank you guys so much for watching. And Deidra, thank you so much for being here. I love you.
Bye so much.